we are actually very excited to announce Dawn and Carol are here joining us live. They're huge advocates. They've been doing a lot over the years to see a change in marijuana in BC and Canada to get get it rolling. And so we're really excited to have you. Yeah. Oh.
No pun intended. Didn't even think of that, but it presented itself. How could you pass it up?
That's a good one. I like that.
Let me ask you, just first off, why does this matter to you so much?
Well, first and foremost, we know that the laws were wrong. We've seen all kinds of people consuming it when we were younger that were older than us, and there was no issues or problems. And then it turned out to be a very dangerous drug because of legislation. So, you know, we've been fighting, not really, standing up for our rights for 27 years, 28 years now.
It would have been easy, Carol, at some point, and again, we'll get into, you've run afoul with the law. It would have been easy to just go, okay, you know what, I can still enjoy the product on my own without having to be front and center in the, as you say, not the fight necessarily, and leading the stand.
Yeah.
Why?
People are going to jail for this. People are being criminalized every day. Even just since Justin Trudeau took power and said that he was going to end this war, 60,000 people have been arrested. Over 60,000 people in this country for simple possession. So we're being criminalized for our personal choice to use a safe therapeutic medication or recreational product, however you see it. And that's not fair. We're harmless, peaceful people. There's millions of us across this country that choose cannabis as an alternative to alcohol or any other kind of substance they could take because it's safe and it's non-toxic and nobody's ever died from cannabis. It's a very foundational issue. It's based on ignorance and racism, and it needs to end. And if we don't stand up, then we can't expect somebody else to stand up for us.
I would imagine it's like pushing a boulder up a hill for the last number of decades. What keeps you getting out of bed to do it?
Well, it's just the fact that it works so well for me. I was fed pharmaceuticals. I was in intensive care for 11 days at a great cost to our medical system. And in the end, they found out it was the Lipitor that I was taking. It shut down my liver. All we had to do was take me off of it, and all of a sudden, within a couple of weeks, I was re-healed. And the other thing that I can say that the cannabis really helped.
Yeah, there's a lot of proven science behind it. There's so much, decades of science behind it, and a lot of science has been suppressed because of prohibition, so it's time to bring it into the light for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you mentioned information suppressed. Why do you think that is? Why has there been such a, you can go anywhere and buy your pharmaceutical companies, because you can buy booze anywhere it's taxed, and I always thought over the years,
cannabis grows
why wouldn't
freely.
the government legalize it, tax it? There's a lot of revenue to be had there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's the lobbyists. First, again, it was used against the war protesters in the early days. Instead of moving it down to a Schedule, was it Schedule 1? They moved it up to equal as heroin. And so, and then, the whole industrial complex for jailing and courts and the police systems, they were using it to gather up funds. And every time they seized a vehicle or monies or anything like that, they put it into their operational budget. So it was being encouraged, really, to up the war and keep it running as opposed to ending it. And in the end, we find out that it's so dangerous and it hurts so many people. Thousands and thousands of people have been severely injured in this drug war.
By the criminalization of it, not by the drug itself.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because sitting here with you guys seem like very wonderful people. And we heard that you yourselves were put in jail for marijuana-related charges.
Yeah, I call it peace before its time,
Yeah.
And I can't imagine those of us that haven't had that experience. What was that like for you?
For me,
How much time did you spend?
I was sentenced to 17 months, so I did 8.5 months in provincial prison, and then I did 8.5 months on parole, which was very strict and like being in prison.
Yeah.
But you know what? When I was arrested and then further on convicted of my crimes, then I knew I was going to go to jail, and I knew I was a peaceful person, and I didn't do anything wrong, and so I just held my head high and just took it as, going to India on a kind of an exploration trip.
A little scarier, though, I would think. That's what would concern me. I get having the moral stance.
But it wasn't. It was lonely, but it wasn't scary. I mean, these are people, 85% of the people in jail are there for drug problems and, crimes caused by drug problems and whatnot. A huge First Nations population in our prisons, and it's really appalling and that they're not getting the help that they need in these prisons, and so I just took it upon myself to carry my way through that, and I took a lot out of it, and I carried to this day a lot of the lessons that I learned from prison. So
it seems like it strengthened your resolve as opposed to weakened it.
Absolutely. Like I said, if I don't stand up for myself, who is going to stand up for me? And there's a lot of people that cannot stand up for themselves because they're so marginalized by this point in their lives that they need that.
And what about you, Don?
Well, the thing is, we're standing up for our rights, and we looked at the laws, and we knew that they were wrong. They were completely, totally wrong. So we operated outside the law. We were outlaws. And so we had families, we had people we were taking care of.
But you knew you were breaking the law.
Well, the thing is, no, but if on our side of the fence, we look at it from the point is the law was broken, the law was wrong. Enforcing laws based on lies is misuse of our tax resources, and that's criminal, especially if you use willful blindness to look away from the evidence that is there. And so we're standing up for our rights, and just like anybody else, we're so fortunate that we have such a great democracy and we have good people here.
I find it amazing, though, that you guys still, you keep going regardless of all that. What's some back history of, how do you guys get into this in kind of the beginning? Was there a change in time that all of a sudden?
I met Don just after he was actually on day parole for after a 4-year sentence for cultivation of marijuana. So he did that time, and then he was on day parole, and that's when I met him. I wanted to open up a compassion club, and his name came up to me, and so we met, and then we started the Decline Cafe on Commercial Drive a year after we met. It was a place, basically the first place in North America where you could buy your cannabis over the counter with ID over 19.
I recall the popularity of that place is what did you in there.
That's what did us in.
Lineups around the block.
I remember living in the neighborhood and going, are they giving away something free there? Why is there such a big lineup?
Or they make really good cookies.
Yeah.
We had that too.
We had it all there, really.
We had ginger snaps with the extra snap.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we had a fan blowing out the door, and it was like a continuous line of smoke going right out the door. People could walk by and just get high.
When the current Liberal government was elected, and you heard during the campaign, and you heard Justin Trudeau talk about decriminalization, about legalization. What was I'm wondering if you were optimistic then, are you still optimistic now? Has it changed from the time you heard them talk about it to where we are now?
Well, a lot of people voted for the Liberals because of the talk of decriminalization right away and legalization.
He's of the age, he does know better, right? And so we thought, okay, here's a guy that's going to do better too. And there's been over 250 raids on cannabis dispensaries since he took power. So he's knocking out a lot of jobs he's not. The police are doing it, but it's because of their laws.
So the orders are coming from the top, right?
This industry employs thousands and thousands of people, like a lot of thousands of people across the country, right?
And they're very knowledgeable and know what they're doing.
For instance, our company, we employ over 150 people. So that's a lot of jobs.
That's direct jobs, and the indirect jobs are usually double to three times that amount.
The future is uncertain for people who work in dispensaries right now across Canada. They're raiding on a daily basis in Toronto now.
What I don't understand is Mr. Trudeau came out and said, well, my dad had the influence and the money, and so he got my brother off on charges. Well, why is he still criminalizing 60,000 people and raiding dispensaries? These people rely on this because, again, I was very ill. I had my liver was shutting down, and it was pharmaceuticals that I had taken at a great cost to being in the hospital in intensive care for 11 days before they found out it was the drugs that I was taking. So,
Don Briere, Carol Gwilt joining us on the show, marijuana advocates for decades. And we told you earlier we were going to take questions from you, the viewer. If you had comments, you had questions for Don and Carol. Do we have something, Nikita?
We have an email question.
Oh, wow.
And this is from Sarah from Ontario. And she's wondering, like, I guess another question, like how you, like what your real passion and your reason to continue the fight.
Because it's wrong, and freedom and democracy, and we have the right. You go to several countries where the laws are so repressive and people are pushed down. For democracy to survive, you have to be vigilant every single day. You have to keep fighting, and I don't want to use the word fighting, but you have to keep standing up for your rights. You have to keep standing all the time. And this is what we're doing. We're standing for everybody, especially the people who do not consume cannabis, because this drug war is so costly. 1.2 million kids going to bed hungry every day. Our soldiers are living in the streets. Why are we doing this to ourselves?
Listen, it's amazing how quickly the time goes by. Don Briere, Carol Gwilt, thank you so much for being with us today, and Avalanche will be speaking to you again in the weeks that come.